Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's November 29th, 2018. Today's video is about a video that I recently saw created by a YouTuber. The name of the channel, and I'll put a link in the description below, is Tractor Talk with Tim. Or Tractor Time with Tim. I think it's Tractor Talk with Tim. That channel is absolutely a great channel. It's a nice family channel. And there's lots of great information that he shares, and his videos are very entertaining as well. So I think that's a really good channel to at least go and check out and hopefully subscribe to. I think it's really worthwhile. I found it very informative. Recently, Tim posted a video showing that they're moving on to a new piece of property. There's a large existing pole barn on the property where there's some structural issues with the building, and that's what this video is now. It's a response. Now, one of the first buildings I ever built was a pole barn. The first building I actually built, I believe I built this garage here. I think it was 1980 that I built that. Now that's on a foundation, the garage is, and with 2x4 construction, and I won't go over that anymore. But the next building I built was a pole barn, 34x50. That's the front building there. That was for a horse barn. There was an overhead door in the center. Back there initially a 4x8 door at the top there for the loft for storing the hay. We had a horse farm, raised thoroughbreds. That was a broodmare barn. Then we built a small arena, a little bit larger building attached to the back of this building. We ended up not having horses for all that many years, and I think it was 81 that I built this first pole barn. And the second pole barn was built after that. Now both of them, I've taken down the pole barns since then, but left the structure up. So let me go inside and pick up the video from in there. It's a little bit warmer inside. Here we go. Okay, I'm inside now. Whenever I'm approaching a renovation or a new structure that I'm building or projects that I'm doing, even whether it's putting in food forests, I'm always thinking about the three factors that I have to try and balance out and decide which approach I'm going to take. So each project, there's going to be variable quality, variable time commitment, and variable cost. And you can have any two of those. So in other words, if you really want something done quickly, and you want excellent quality, then it's going to cost you a significant amount of money, because you're going to have to hire someone to do the work for you, or somehow work it out where you have multiple people. So you can only have two of those, and often the way I approach things is, yes, I do really want high quality in most circumstances, not always, but high quality and low cost. And if I'm going to have low cost, it's going to take me time, because it's going to be me doing the job, and I may have to find the best deal on materials, picking up used materials, taking down a structure, whatever it may take. So those are things that I'm always thinking about. Another thing I'm always trying to think about is what are the ultimate goals? What's the wish list? It's sort of like the bucket list for the building. And that's really something that all three of you, your daughter included, your wife and you, need to sit down and really brainstorm and say, what could I possibly, maybe you want to create a little YouTube studio for you to do your editing, an office space in there. Maybe you're going to want to have a lift in there for lifting up the equipment to do repairs. Maybe there's more equipment that you're going to want to purchase in the future. You may want to have an area where you do painting. There may be, you may want to have an extra summertime room where family members can come and stay. So, you know, the possibilities are enormous. You may say, geez, eventually I'd like to have another building, and you store some materials when you can pick them up at a good price. For example, in the back barn there's two sets of trusses that I've acquired when there was the opportunity, and I have them in storage until I have the time to actually put up those two structures. So that's something I think that is important. I lacked that brainstorming and that foresight years ago when I built this building. When I did the research on pole barns, I was hearing, geez, they're going to last 40, 50, maybe 60 years, for a lifespan on them, and really wouldn't be a lot of time or cost to maintain them. Those are things that I was told, and again, it only lasted about 11, 12 years before I really discovered the amount of decay going on in there. And I could foresee other possibilities because we had moved on from having horses to having other things in our life that were our interests. At that time, we're running a wildlife rehabilitation center, and we were pursuing our medical degrees, our veterinary degrees, and there were other hobbies and all things of interest. And I've always had this proclivity for equipment, tools, and all for all the things that I do. So I didn't want to lose this building, but I look at pole barns as being a degenerative investment. So investments, I think of degenerative investments like a car. When you buy it, you take it off the lot, it depreciates in value immediately. Pole barns I look at that way as well because they're in contact with the ground, they're woody material, they are going to decompose. Often they're built right where so much of the materials are there, whether it's the metal that's there that starts to rust, or even with some of the enclosures that I've seen around some of the posts, or the ones that have been put in concrete, I've seen them start to dry rot as well. So I've seen so many things over time that I think we don't get as long a period of time, and 40, 50, 60 years isn't that long, especially if you're putting a great deal of money in it, because in 40, 50 years, the cost of those materials, if you have to do it again, can be much, much greater. So anyways, I look at that as a degenerative investment. I'm always trying to get either generative investments or regenerative investments, something that you put in an initial investment and it keeps giving year after year after year. And I've given examples of those things in other videos. So now I have built a pole barn since then, and I've used pressure treated 6x6s. So in the sugar shack, there's a wood storage area, wood shed on the front of the sugar shack. And that has, what I did with that was, so that's insulated concrete forms. So I have a root cellar down below, and then we have the sugar shack on top of it, really super strong building, mildly insulated. And that's something I want to talk about again in a moment. But what I did have when I built both the chicken coop inside of the chicken coop and in the woodshed part of the sugar shack, the addition to that, I put down some tubes, and you could use drainage pipes, or you can use, and I can't think of the name, but they're cardboard tubes that you put into the earth after you've excavated the area. You get them plumb, you get them level, and you get them right where you want to put the posts, and you pour concrete in it, and you put something like this into the concrete, like this rather. And so these parts are in the concrete, and then the post goes inside of this and gets secured. And then on the outside of this, you put your purlings right along that as well. So that way you can have the post never being in contact with the ground, just as the base of it, and you put like a plate like this, a plastic or PVC type plate on top of the metal that the post sits on top of, and that works out very well as far as decreasing the chances of decomposition as a result of contact with moisture. No mold or materials are going to get into that area. So So culvert pipe being put in the ground, or you get those cardboard tubes that you can get at any of the warehouse places. That's one way. So how do you go about, when you have an existing structure, get to the point where you could potentially dig down, cut off the bad part of the posts, put in, excavate out with your Casey, your mini excavator, your tiny excavator, dig down there, remove the bottom of the posts, put one of those tubes in there, pour concrete in there, and get it set. Well, you have to hold the building up during that time. And I think the best way of doing it is making I-beams. So, for example, if I were to do it at this time, I'd use a 2x8 piece of 2x8 structural timber. That is not pressure treated. Doesn't have to be pressure treated. Two 2x6s together going lengthwise, and another 2x8, and I'd screw all these together, and I wouldn't have any two seams together. But that would make basically an I-beam that could go right up against your rafters, or in this case, against these floor joists that hold the rest of the building up, the trusses and all that. So putting this up, screwing it together, and and you can assemble it while you're putting it up. And screw this to at least 2 screws in each one of those trusses, 2 or 3 screws in each one of the trusses. So that would be one of the ways of supporting the building, and you may have to do some additional support where the purlings are, the side supports for the metal siding. So you have to take off the metal siding, put some horizontal boards across to hold that up if it isn't securely attached to the rafters. I'm sorry, to the trusses that you have up above. The way that we did it here, because I wanted this building to be insulated, and I'll talk about super insulated versus insulated in just a moment. But I decided to take all of those posts out, and I had a friend of mine come in and do the work. I would do it, if I were to do it again, I'd do it myself, because he's a general contractor, puts buildings up pretty darn quickly, and not done with the meticulous detail that I put into a structure. But anyways, we had the beams supporting the floor joists here. The walls were taken away. The 2x6s that were 2 foot on center going up, supporting the T111 that was on the outside, and Homosote I had there as well. And that was taken off. The posts were cut off at the top and then taken out. The area was excavated in a straight line to pour a footer down there. Then the block wall was put in, and then 2x6, 16 on center wall panels were put up, and the T111 was replaced back onto the system. My plans at that time weren't to make this super insulated. Now, if you've seen videos in the past, we have a post and beam house. It is super insulated. The chicken coop work area, that's super insulated. And this will be super insulated, but I hadn't planned on doing it at that time. I just never really thought about how much property taxes would go up, insurance rates would go up over time. So all of these additional costs really made me think about, if I'm going to be using all of these structures and buildings, I really want to have as low a maintenance, as low a cost maintaining them during the cold winter months here. Now we're in a very cold temperate climate. we're in Oswego, New York, near Lake Ontario. So lots and lots of snow in this area. And typically we do get a fair amount of rain, but in the last few years we've had some significant droughts. So did I cover everything with that? Oh, with the insulation. So right now I'll be going through showing some of the processes of me using insulated polyisocyanurate reclaimed insulation boards. The same boards that I use to insulate the Sugar Shack, which there's videos on that. And there's videos on me insulating the work area and chicken coop attachment where the greenhouse is getting attached to in the future. One of the important factors if you really want to decrease your energy costs over time in buildings is really creating a very nice, nicely insulated building. Now typically when we look at typical structures, if we look at the walls like these 2x4s or 2x6s, 16 on center, there's 14.5 inches of insulation between each one of the boards, 1.5 inches of board, which is a thermal bridge. So the heat radiates out of the building during the winter months easily through that wood out to the outer surface of the building. And typically what we do is we put insulation, whether it's blown in insulation or fiberglass or insulated foam boards and all, we put it between those studs. And unfortunately, that's a significant, I made a whole video about this in the past, about how much money we save. We saved a couple $100,000 over the last almost 40 years living in the house because of the way that we insulate it, and it really doesn't cost us anything to heat the house. And so when we're heating large structures and we're going to be working in there, is this a place that you're going to be heating, during the winter months and trying to keep it from freezing in there all the time, especially with these really high ceilings? So we can lose a lot of heat through the studs. Now, if you're going to keep it as a pole barn structure, and then that's a much more ideal circumstance, because there's the intersection. The thermal bridging will be where the 2x4 or 2x6 crosses with the 6x6. So that's a thermal bridge in that area. So the heat will conduct out through the wood where there isn't any insulation. But the way that I'm building it, refurbishing this building is, besides putting insulation between each one of these studs along in here, there will be an insulated board on the inside surface as well. So in other words, if you look at the chicken coop or the sugar shack videos, you'll see that the insulation completely envelops those buildings all the way around, from the roof structure to the sides, even underground in the greenhouse area. So we're creating a complete thermal barrier and reducing the potential for thermal bridging, where heat can be lost through these structural elements. I hope that makes sense. So you could easily, since the 6x6s are so far apart, you just have the 6 inches thickness where there's thermal bridging, and you could easily slip insulation, let's say 1.5 inches of insulation behind that 6x6, or you could create a whole inner wall surface of insulation going. And you could use any insulation material that you want. You'd just be decreasing the space inside of the building. The other thing is thinking about, do you want to use natural lighting as well? Do you have good southern exposure, not trees or buildings blocking that? Thinking about things, what you want to do with the building. Those are all things that I would think about. The other, I'm going to grab one more thing. Tim, you also asked if for viewers to leave comments or suggestions about the lighting systems. I've had all kinds of different LED lights. I have these are all LED with the exception of a couple of fluorescents that are still in this building. And I do have the T5 high bay lighting in my main work area that's 14 foot tall in the back shop back there where I work on big equipment and all. But these LED lights made by Fiat that I got at Costco are really great LED lights. I use these for starting all the seedlings in the work area. I've made videos on these before. Costco, and you can get these same fixtures on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description down below. But if you've got a Costco nearby you, they have these on sale at different times, and even their standard price is much less than the cost at Amazon, and Amazon's got the next best price. But Costco tends to, a couple times a year, have like $5 off each one of these. And they're really a pretty darn good light. I don't know how well they'd be at 12 foot off the ground or 11 foot off the ground, whatever the height of your ceiling is. But certainly at 8 foot, they really do a very good job of lighting up the area. Enough where I can see in my tool bins and all that pretty darn well. One other thing I would suggest is, when I built the building, I really wanted it to last. I'm talking about the original pole barn. I wanted it to last forever, so I researched nails, and so I used pole barn nails, ribbed pole barn nails. These are 6 inches, and I have some that are 12 inches, 10 and 12 inches. And I have the spiral ones as well. I'm not sure how well these two are showing up. I would never use these again. I have a whole bunch of them left. Never again, because I've broken so many of my crowbars. I've broken 4 of my crowbars. This one I bent. It should look like, the crowbar should look like this one, but I've broken off the tips on some of these crowbars. I snapped one off right here. Those pole barn nails are darn near impossible to get out once they're in there, unless it's decomposed right in the area where they are. Instead, nowadays, just about everything I use, because I foresee me having to potentially have to fix things, but something much stronger, and certainly with high winds, I'm using these large screws nowadays, and these are 14/6 screws that I've used for, you'll see many of the buildings. I've got 14/8s, 10 and 10s. These really work extremely well. I've driven, once screwing a couple of beams together, I've driven my tractor Optimus Prime right up and over those when one end is up on blocks. And those things will not come apart. You'll snap the boards long before these will start to separate at all. Almost, they're as strong as the pole barn nails, but they're easy to take out and redo if you've got to do that. So those are just a couple of suggestions. I think that's all the questions that I had seen you give in the video. I'm excited about watching your videos in the future. You've really got a great channel, and I hope this is somewhat helpful. So if you found this video of value, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post more videos. And certainly, folks, have a great day. Bye-bye now.